Alright, welcome students. This is your district checkpoint review. Our district checkpoint is going to be on Tuesday, and that is, let's check the date real quick, April 8th. There are 4 topics on the test: inequalities, systems of equations, exponents, and quadratics. We've been working on quadratics for the past couple of weeks, so this will be the most familiar with you, but we do need to go back and talk about these other topics just because it has been a while since we did those. Okay? Alright, inequalities. If you're given a question like graph 2x plus 3y is greater than 6 and check to see if 3, 2 is a solution, this is what you have to do. You have to take 2x plus 3y is greater than 6, and you have to solve it for y just like we always have. So we box 3y, minus 2x over, those cancel. We bring down the 3y, we bring down our greater than. This gets written in an mx plus b form just like we've been doing all year. So this minus 2x goes first, positive 6 goes second. Then we take everything and we divide by 3, and that cancels. This stays greater than. Remember, there's a rule that you flip if you divide by a negative, but we divided by a positive all the way across, so we do not flip. Negative 2/3 won't divide, so negative 2/3 x plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. So this is what we're going to type into the calculator. And you can see that I came up here and typed it into the calculator. Negative 2/3 x plus 2. Greater than means shade up, so I came all the way over here and I changed this right here from a line to the shade up. So you scroll over there with your left arrow key and then you hit enter until you get that shade up box. And then this is the picture that you get. Since this does not have a line under it, this would be dotted if you were trying to pick out a graph. The calculator won't do the dotted. Now we're trying to decide if 3, 2 is a solution. So we need to go from the origin over 1, 2, 3, up 1, 2, 3, 2 is right there, and it is yes, because it's in the shaded area. Alright, so in the shaded area is a yes. The only time it gets tricky is when it's on the line. On a solid line is yes, on a dotted line is no, and sometimes that happens, so you got to be careful with those. Systems of equations, this is when you have 2 lines and you're trying to see where they hit each other. So your goal with systems of equations is get 2 equations, get them in y equals, hit graph. When you hit graph, this picture is going to show up. So once you hit graph and you see your picture, you want to make sure that they hit each other. If you don't see them hit each other, you can do zoom 3, enter, and zoom yourself out, but you want to make sure that you see them hit. Once you see them hit, that's when you hit second, trace 5, which is intersection, and then you have to hit enter 3 times in a row, and the answers will pop up on the screen like they did right there. This one intersects at 0, 2. You do have to make sure they're both solved for y. This one's already solved. This one we would have to go through the process. Subtract 2x to both sides. So that would be 3y equals, we want to write it in mx plus b form, so that would be negative 2x plus 6. And then we divide everything by 3. And so when you do that, you get y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2. And so these are the things that we typed into y equals. Okay. If you're given a table, then you still want to do maybe stat edit to get your equations. The only time I wouldn't do this is if I had a picture and I could just see where they hit each other. Then I might do it a different way. Alright, exponent rules. Remember that exponents kind of go by their own rules. In the exponent world, multiply really means to add. So we multiply our numbers. 3 times 9 is 27. But when we get to the exponents, we add them. x2 and x3 becomes 2 plus 3 or x5. This y has nothing on it, so that means it has a 1 on it. So that's y1 and y2, which is y1 plus 2, or y3. Okay. Divide in the exponent world means to subtract. One of the things that we can do if we have negative exponents like we do here, you got to think of negatives like this guy's unhappy right here. This negative 2 is unhappy on the top, so if we move him underneath, that would make him happy. So you'd have 14, and on the bottom we'd have 8x6, and if we move him down, we'd have x2 on the bottom also. That would make him happy to go down there. This guy right here, y negative 4, he's unhappy on the top, so we can move him down on the bottom. This guy right here is unhappy, so we move him up to the top. Then once we get everybody in their positions, then we can use the subtract rule. With our numbers, we just treat them normal. I would do 14 divided by 8, math 1, enter. So I'll do that on my calculator now. 14 divided by 8, math 1, enter, is 7 over 4. So I know 7 goes on top, 4 goes on bottom. Here, the x's are both on the bottom now, so this becomes a multiplication problem, or an addition problem. 6 plus 2 is x, 8 on the bottom. Then with these guys, the rule was move to the bigger one and subtract. So we're going to move the 2 down here and subtract. 4 minus 2 is y2. And so this would be our answer. There would end up being no letters on the top. Okay, power to power means that you, for the number, you just raise it to that power. 2 squared is 4. For the exponents, power to power means to multiply. So 2 times negative 3 is x to the negative 6. Well, you can look at this guy. He's not happy on the top, so we have to move him underneath the 4 to get him to be happy. So it would be 4 and x over 6, or x to the 6, like that. Alright, quadratics. The first thing we're going to talk about with quadratics is the changes in a and c. We have our parent function, and when we compare everything to that, the parent function is y equals x squared, and this sits at the origin like this and is the normal width. He exercises 1 time a day, and he's sitting at 0. Okay, so if we increase a, so we make a bigger, that means he's doing more exercise, and that makes him narrow. If we make him smaller, like if we go to a proper fraction, that means he exercises less, and he's going to be wider. So bigger would be like exercise 4 times a day. That'll make you narrow. Exercise once every 2 days. That's going to make you more wide. The other thing that a can do is if a is negative, when you think of negative, you should think of frowny face. Okay? It'll turn it upside down. So the a value can make it bigger, which makes it narrow, smaller, which makes it wider, or it can make it a frowny face. The c, it shifts up if you add, and down if you subtract. Okay? So if I look at something like y equals 2/5 x squared minus 6, I know this is a smaller number, so that makes them wider, and this makes them shift down 6. You could always type this in your calculator and compare it to the mother function, and you would see that as well. Alright, quadratic graphs in general, some important parts are, this point down here is called the vertex. In this particular instance, this is a minimum. If it were upside down, then this would be a maximum. It's written as an ordered pair. In this case, this one might be 0, -3 if it's down 3 units. This, I'll switch to a different color. This red line that I just drew, this would be the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry is always x equals whatever number is right there. So x equals 0 for this one, but it could be a different number. Where it crosses here, right here, and right here, these are your solutions, which are also called roots, zeros, and x-intercepts. So those are all important things in regards to that type of graph. Okay? Alright, quadratic solutions. This is what we were just talking about, roots, x-intercept, zeros. Typically we have two solutions, and that's a quadratic that comes down and hits once on the left side, once on the right side. Okay? You could have a quadratic that only hits one time. That's one that just comes down and sets right here on the line. You could also have one with zero solutions, one that was shifted up and never touched the line. The three main ways that we learned how to solve quadratic equations was through factoring, quadratic formula, and graphing. Remember, if we're factoring, if we take x squared plus 6x plus 8 equals 0, we have to complete the x. 8 on top, 6 on bottom. That would be 4 and 2. And then that's x squared plus 4x plus 2x plus 8 equals 0. Group, 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 group. X comes out of there and leaves us with x plus 4. 2 comes out of there, and it's a positive 2 because of that, and leaves us with x plus 4. So we look at our answers, x plus 4 and x plus 2. And then we're starting to see that if that's a positive, the answer is a negative. And if that's a positive, the answer is a negative. If you do the same problem using the quadratic formula, you have to figure out what's a, which in this case is 1, b, 6, and c is 8. Right, and in this we do the negative of b, or the opposite of b, plus or minus b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times 1, or 2. So the opposite of 6 is negative 6, plus or minus. This thing is called a discriminant. I'm going to do that in my calculator. 6 parentheses squared minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses 8. This is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. Then we split up and we do an add version and a subtract version. And we're just using our calculator to simplify all this. So negative 6 plus the square root of 4, enter, divided by 2. This one gives us our negative 2. And then this one probably is going to give us our negative 4. Negative 6 minus square root of 4, enter, divided by 2, negative 4. Okay. The graphing, we go to y equals and we put 0 in for the first one, and then we put the quadratic in for the second one. So I'm doing that in my calculator as we speak. 0 and x squared plus 6x plus 8, and I hit graph. Once you get them into y equals, you go ahead and hit graph, and you'll see that it hits. And then we're going to do an intersection, and we do that the same way we did with our system. So we do, we do second, trace, 5, and then we're going to move this little cursor guy over to the right hand side, and then we hit enter 3 times, and then we repeat. Well, actually when we hit enter 3 times, it tells us the answer is negative 2, which we knew. And then we repeat these same directions but move it over to the right hand side, and we find out the other answer is negative 4. Okay? Bring these notes on your own paper, and we'll give you bonus points on your test.